My friends, Novak Djokovic has declared war on the tennis record book, on the Big Three. He has made it clear that he wants to be the GOAT going down in the history books. Recently, Novak, in an interview on In Depth with Graham Bensinger, he said,
I believe I can win most slams and break the record for longest number one. And I believe those are definitely my clear goals.
Those are definitely my clear goals. And he added, in the spiritual nature that we know from Novak Djokovic and some of his spiritual guru friends, he said this: I don't believe in limits. I think limits are only illusions of your ego or your mind. And of course, we know from the last show that Novak Djokovic and some of his guru friends know all about illusions that are in your mind.
Our intention collides on the same energy wavelength, and that intention is that we want everybody to succeed in everything they want to do in life.
But you know what? I respect Novak Djokovic for coming right out and saying this. In the past, we hear things from the Big Three like, we play for the love of the game. The records are nice. We would like the records, but that's not the reason why we're out here. We do it because we love the game. I've always liked that answer, but I like this even better. I respect this. It ramps things up. It makes the entertainment value go up for me because we know that Novak wants it, and we know that Roger and Rafa have to respond in some way. And while Roger and Rafa, of course, they'll try to stop him, the whole ATP is going to stop him, the next gen tried to stop him, I should say. But there is one little problem in the way of Novak Djokovic, and of course, that's the fact that there are no tennis tournaments. None to be played right now. You can't set the records. You can't win them all if there are no tennis tournaments to play.
That's right.
There we go.
Man, that sucks!
Now, the ATP has just announced that there will be no tennis in July. They've extended the tour suspension to early August, which puts all eyes on the U.S. Open. Will there be a U.S. Open? And right here, in this stack of tennis news and information that spans the globe, much like the tournaments of our beloved sport, tennis. In this stack of information today, we've got some very interesting news coming out of the USTA, where things look so dire, so desperate financially, that they may be looking to put the U.S. Open on no matter what. They can't go without the revenue, even if that means moving the tournament from New York City to Indian Wells, California, or even worse, the 100 tennis court super campus of the USTA in Orlando, Florida. Yes, my friends, the U.S. Open has put all options on the table.
What's the likelihood you're still playing at 40?
Today on Coffee Break Tennis, we will take a look at the USTA's dire financial situation. We will also look at the options that the U.S. Open is weighing, what they have on the table. We'll do the same thing, common courtesy, for ROLAND GARROS, the French Open. We'll take a look at their decision-making process and whether or not we will have a French Open this year. Also, Novak Djokovic has responded to criticism. We talked about it here first, but Tennis Channel jumped on Novak Djokovic for some of the stuff he talked about with gurus on Instagram live chats. And we'll take a look at what Novak had to say. Also, Novak Djokovic's mom has called Roger Federer arrogant. We'll spare just a brief moment to look at that. Andy Roddick's response to that was on Tennis Channel. And, of course, a little bit more on the controversy with Dominic Thiem aus Österreich. All that and even more on an exciting jam-packed edition of Coffee Break Tennis. All right, so first up, this here from ESPN. I will break Federer's Grand Slam record. That is the headline from ESPN. That is what Novak Djokovic has said. There was one other thing in that interview with on In Depth with Graham Bensinger.
What's the likelihood you're still playing at 40?
And that's Yelena, Novak's wife, said that Djokovic almost quit after losing to unseeded Benoit Paire at the Miami Open in 2018. He almost quit. How does that make Benoit Paire feel to know that Djokovic was basically thinking, if I'm going to lose to a guy like Benoit Paire, I got all these slams that I won, but you know what? Made all this money. Losing to a loser like Benoit Paire, might as well just quit the whole sport and retire. I wonder how Benoit Paire feels like that, but in solidarity with Benoit Paire, I have the collar popped to show my support, because I don't think you should retire if you lose to Benoit Paire. He's a pretty good player. So if Djokovic wants to do this, right, if he wants to set all the records, he probably needs the U.S. Open to happen this year. Throw the French Open in there, too. He's got a shot to win it. Him, Thiem, Nadal, one of those three will win the French Open if it happens this year. So let's take a look at the U.S. Open. This is from thestraitstimes.com. This has been reported all over the place. I thought this one article here did a good job of bringing information that I saw in different articles, bringing it all into one article. That way I don't have to print several stories from several places that basically all say the same stuff. So let's dive right in here. I've highlighted with my highlighter, yellow highlighter on this, the end of this pen, I highlighted some of the highlights. That's why they call it a highlighter of this article. So let's start off with headline: tennis with $570 million on the line. The U.S. Open hunts for options. I mean, you can see it from the headline here at thestraitstimes.com. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Now, I have a little theory here. I'm not basing this on anything I've seen, but I just feel like Indian Wells in the past, they talk about being the fifth slam. They're always growing. Maybe the USTA and the US Open, maybe they're a little bit intimidated in some ways, a little bit threatened. And I feel like they don't want, and there is one thing I should say, this isn't a complete guess on my part. There is one paragraph in the second page I highlighted right here. Serious discussions between the USTA and Larry Ellison, that's the billionaire guy who bought Indian Wells out in Palm Springs, California, where all this coronavirus stuff started, basically when they canceled the tournament and shocked the world. Little would we know that it wouldn't appear so shocking when we see everything else get shut down in the world. Anyways, serious discussions between the USTA and Larry Ellison have yet to occur. Two officials with knowledge of the situation told the New York Times the officials spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak about the specific planning for the tournament. So, okay, they can't reveal their sources. But that right there kind of confirms my suspicion that maybe they don't want to get too cozy with Indian Wells. I don't know what they would be worried about. Maybe they're worried about the U.S. Open would eventually, end up being alternating. They'd play it in New York one year, in California another year. Maybe they're thinking about something like that could happen, or Larry Ellison will want a bigger piece of the pie if they do it one time. And that's why I also think it's interesting that they're now floating the idea of doing the U.S. Open at this USTA national campus in Orlando, Florida, which isn't really set up. There's no stadiums. They're not set up to do TV, so it would take a lot of work to get it ready, but they wouldn't have to deal with Larry Ellison. I don't know if that's a thing that they're thinking about or not, but the fact that anonymous sources had to tell the New York Times that serious discussions with Larry Ellison over Indian Wells and the USTA are not occurring yet, that tells me my hunch is there's something to it. So, article starts off saying the USTA has begun to seriously explore a series of alternative plans for the signature event that accounts for more than 80% of its revenue. Think about that, 80% of its annual revenue. I mean, they kind of need the U.S. Open, right? Especially because they've taken out massive loans. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to work on all their latest projects, like building the giant tennis center in Orlando. I bet that costs a lot of money, and they probably haven't paid that off yet. So the source that they have here is a guy named Donald Dell, who has been working in tennis for a long time. It says here, the longtime tennis agent and promoter who last month participated in a call with tennis officials and the White House about logistics, financial details of staging tennis tournaments in the coming months. What he says, what he's quoted here saying is, I think they're going to end up trying to do what I think they're going to try to end up doing is go elsewhere, move the tournament, Palm Springs, Orlando, Florida. And here's why we have a look into this whole thing. This is why we have some idea of what's going on at the USTA right now. This paragraph here that I highlighted all of it. The USTA is a nonprofit organization that has to disclose some financial information, which provides a rare window into the economic crisis that COVID-19 has delivered to professional sports. Beyond tickets, corporate hospitality sales produced $42.5 million last year. The USTA generates $140 million in media rights fees, including an 11-year, $825 million deal with ESPN. USTA's earnings come chiefly from the U.S. Open, and it makes some money from smaller tournaments. Staging a tournament last year cost $242 million in direct and indirect expenses, including nearly $70 million in prize money. They made about $300 million, so that's plus about $60 million. Complicating the decision for this tournament, the USTA made what in hindsight seems like maybe a losing bet here. What is that? They didn't purchase cancellation insurance. Another excellent tidbit from this article. They didn't do what Wimbledon did, right? That's why it was easier to make the decision to cancel Wimbledon, because insurance, basically, they got paid out to refund all those tickets, and they were able to survive financially. The U.S. Open, They say, quote, the USTA said they had opted not to purchase cancellation insurance because they deemed it prohibitively expensive and it would curtail spending on developing tennis. They decided that insurance, cancellation insurance, and don't forget that 9/11 happened only a couple days after the U.S. Open, so they know that there's always a possibility of something crazy happening, right? But despite all that, they decided spending a few $1 million on cancellation insurance, not worth it. And then they quote this guy, Vidmeyer, a spokesman for the USTA, saying that many of the USTA's agreements with media partners and sponsors protect some cash flow in a way that will allow the organization to get through the worst-case scenario of canceling the U.S. Open this year. However, here's the juicy part, and then we will move on from this article. However, according to two anonymous people familiar with these agreements, which account for about $250 million annually, minimizing the fallout of a lost U.S. Open would require negotiating new terms with the sponsors and media partners, likely spreading out losses over several years. Such a move would have ramifications for the tennis business and efforts to grow the game at the junior and youth levels for the next decade. They are back up against the wall. The USTA has to do something. They have to do everything they can to try to make this happen. Now, I don't know. We didn't do a show last week. I think it's been about 2 weeks since we did a show. Last week, there was a lot of rumors. I was going to do a show, and then almost immediately, the USTA was putting stuff out there saying, that's not true. We're not really seriously considering moving the tournament to Indian Wells. But now they're revealing, especially with the anonymous sources in that story that I just crumpled up, now we're starting to see behind the scenes. And again, we won't officially know, or I don't know, again, I don't know if I said this yet in the show today, but we won't seriously know what's going to happen until next month, about mid to late June. So we're about a month away from finding out what's actually going to happen for real. But now we have all these insights, these little looks, little leaks, rumors from behind the scenes that it looks desperate and it looks like the USTA has to put this on. They can't afford not to. Now, before we move on to the French Open, which is a pretty similar case, but we'll look at the specifics really briefly and then we'll move on, I want to do this because this is one thing I've been thinking about. Tennis can't blow this. This is a huge opportunity to have people watch tennis for the first time. There's no live sports. Tennis, it's kind of a social distancing sport, right? We're not tackling each other. We're not getting in each other's faces. We're hitting a tennis ball from across the court to the other side of the court. This is like the social distancing sport, right? Tennis should have a chance. And I feel like because of this, this could be the one major live sporting event on TV for like the whole year, right? Or at least for the whole summer. And this guy, John Tobias, tennis agent, this is from tennisworldusa.org, he seems to agree with me. Speaking with ESPN, Tobias said, if the USTA finds a way to pull off the tournament, even if it's with a reduced draw, a few courts, no doubles, it would be one of the most watched sporting events of all time. Huge opportunity. You got to do it. I mean, you can't beat that. And I feel like if you're tennis, now that we know from last week and the week before, Dustin Brown and the German tennis tournament on the red clay they did. It wasn't a real tournament, but it was real players, and they were able to follow the social distancing rules and able to safely put on a tennis tournament. West Palm Beach, Florida, we saw the same thing last week with the UTR reopen. Players like Riley Opelka and the Serbian guy, Kecmanovic, were all there. We've seen that it's possible to do this. And even though it'll be more challenging to get all of the top tennis players in one city, safely get them there, however they're going to do it, fly them there, whatever you got to do, it's challenging, but it's very well worth it. Just like that guy said, Mr. Tennis Agent John Tobias, because this is a huge opportunity. And like I said, with the tennis tournaments, not real tournaments, but they were playing for some prize money. It was probably much less. It was undisclosed. But the point is we've seen it's possible. It's possible to have people play tennis. You could say that tennis is the social distancing sport. There's no tackling. There's no getting in each other's faces, unless you're arguing at the net or something like that or on the changeover. But other than that, we're hitting a tennis ball back and forth from a safe distance, a socially distanced distance. Tennis can happen. I think the USTA, I think tennis as a whole, if they don't come together and find a way to make this US Open happen with no fans and take advantage of this giant TV audience, they're missing out on a big opportunity. And now that we know about the financial problems that they're having, more reason that they should do it. Let's move to the French Open, ROLAND GARROS. The rescheduled French Open could be played in empty stadiums, according to French tennis chief Bernard Guidicelli. We haven't ruled out any options. ROLAND GARROS is first and foremost a story of matches and players. There's the tournament taking place in the stadium and a tournament on TV screens. And here is the key which is very similar to what we're hearing with the USTA now. Millions of viewers around the world are waiting. Organizing it behind closed doors would allow part of the business model, television rights, that's the part he's talking about, meaning part of where you get money from for putting on your big tennis tournament, which account for more than a third of the tournament's revenues, to go ahead. Television rights to go ahead. This cannot be overlooked. Turns out the French Tennis Federation, they're kind of in a similar situation. They fund all these programs for developing their tennis, and if they can't have their biggest moneymaker of the year, they're going to have some pain. They're going to go through some struggles because of that. Quote, Roland Garros is the driving force of tennis in France. It is what feeds the players in our ecosystem. We think of them first, protecting them. We made a courageous choice, and today, no one regrets it. A tournament without a date is a boat without a rudder. We don't know where we're going. We positioned ourselves as far in the calendar as possible, anxious not to harm major events so that no Masters 1000 or Grand Slams would be affected. The turn of events have seemed to prove us right. No? A little stick in the eye for all the haters that were mad when the French Open rescheduled everything. So good to know that they're still sticking with it. So comment below what you think about that. Do you want the tournament to happen? I'm not hiding it at all here. I think it's too big of an opportunity for tennis to grow. Peter Freeman over at Crunch Time Coaching totally agrees with me. We were talking about this yesterday. It's a huge opportunity. And one thing I'm noticing when I go out on tennis courts and do the special social distancing tennis that I play nowadays, when I go out there, I see courts full. And I see people who don't normally play tennis. So people are going out and they're trying tennis for the first time. I can't help but think about when I first played tennis when I was 18 years old, and then I flipped on TV and I got lucky that Wimbledon was on, and I fell in love with the sport. So this summer, when there's no live sports to watch, and I see new people coming to try tennis out at the tennis courts all of the time, you can't miss this opportunity to grow the sport. It could have really nice effects that last a long, long time. Moving on, Novak Djokovic slammed after making dangerous theories on Instagram. Tennis commentator Mary Carrillo says she was left very disturbed by Novak Djokovic and his friend Shervin Jafaraya as they discussed controversial theories about food and water. Okay, this is where they say you can take toxic sludge water and use your mind, use positive thoughts to change it into healthy, pure water that you can safely drink. Probably not the greatest advice. Mary Carrillo said, we know that he believes in meditation and prayer and holistic healing. He hated that he had to get his elbow cut. He tried to stave that off for a long time because he genuinely thought he could heal his own body. I'm very disturbed that Djokovic and that other guy, Shervin, the love guru, are saying you can change toxic water to drinking water. This is dangerous stuff, and when I looked at it, it already had 500,000 hits. I really hope he backs down from that. So I feel like you got to find a balance between your livelihood, making money, and feeling that you have the freedom to go out and speak your mind and say what you think about things. And yeah, Djokovic is saying stuff that a lot of people are going to disagree with that look crazy, but you know what? Athletes have come before Novak Djokovic, said things that are just as stupid, if not worse. Some of them have even said things that you could say are profound. It's freedom of speech. It's a beautiful thing. Let Novak Djokovic say it. If you haven't noticed in the world, no matter where you go, there's going to be people saying crazy stuff. Right? That happens all the time. Some of these people are important. Some of these people are just crazy people you've never heard of. On Twitter, that is the way of the world. All of us must go forward and use our best judgment. Don't drink the toxic sludge water after you pray to it and think happy thoughts like Shervin, the love guru.
If you need water and you're completely dehydrated, sure. But at least get it out of the plastic, let it sit in the sun for like half an hour, add some salt, shake it up a little bit, get it active. That's probably what you want to do with like a bottled water that you get from a gas station, right? Give it some love, set some intention into it. I don't know, drop a crystal into it, whatever. You know what I mean? Get it going again. Activate it as much as you can.
Don't drink the bleach. We can make up our minds. We have brains. We are adults, right? So let's back off of Novak Djokovic. But really quick before we do, let's read this from Deadspin. Novak Djokovic opens mouth again, brain falls out. Now, the reason why I wanted to read this is because there's some background on that Shervin guy. And I think everyone would enjoy knowing a little bit more about Shervin, the love guru, who said this.
Yeah. Thank you, Father, Son.
I have been monitoring his Instagram posts for the last couple of weeks because he's a goldmine. The guy says crazy and funny stuff all the time. Why would we want to take freedom of speech away from Djokovic and Shervin when we can enjoy hearing all the stuff they say?
Thank you, Father, Son.
In case you're curious, and make sure that you're not, this is I don't have the name of the author, but it's from Deadspin.com. You can find it. You can see who wrote it. The Copperfield act gone wrong here is Shervin Jafariah, who has somehow wormed his way into the Djokovic camp with views that seem straight out of the deepest, darkest Scientology. You'll be shocked to learn that Jafariah came from the world of real estate dealings and hedge funds. And I've noticed this. Take a look at this little clip that I saved. Shervin, the love guru, was doing a workout on his Instagram feed, and then you can clearly see the reflection of this glass here in the background that he's got like some kind of cleaning lady with a mask on and an industrial vacuum. Cleaning his house while he's there. So I was starting to, the more I saw from him, the more I started to realize, like, this guy must have like millions of dollars, the kind of real estate that he's sitting on. It looks like he lives on like a oceanfront property in California. That's not cheap, right? So it turns out he comes from real estate and hedge funds. Probably a rich kid, probably a hedge fund baby. Yet another jackwagon who assumed because he had made a lot of money in a game system, he must be a gift from above and must share his superior ways with us plebes. I don't want to go and say it's a game system, but that is the opinion of the Deadspin writer right here. I think if you made the money honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. Wouldn't you know it, all the things that change water, all the ways you can change water and make it healthier, they all can be produced by products that he sells, Jafariah Shervin, on his website. So I'll save this because there's some more good stuff in there, but that's enough for today. You get the gist. He's a hedge fund baby or something like that, and he's selling miracle potions on the internet. So there's a little more information on Shervin, the love guru friend of Novak Djokovic. Let's move on to Goran Ivanisevic from Djokovic camp, and he's talking about Nick Kyrgios here, and I thought this was especially good. You know what? I don't want to talk about Djokovic's mom said Federer is arrogant. I don't even know. Did she say this in Serbian? Is this a poor translation? Tennis Channel has been mostly unwatchable lately, but I'll read to you what Andy Roddick said. Andy Roddick described the comments from Novak Djokovic's mother as unnecessary, adding, "I don't think arrogant probably wouldn't be in one of my first 6,000 words that I would use to describe Roger Federer." So there you go. But I don't really want to get into it. It kind of bores me. It's petty. It's stupid. It's really not what matters. What matters is what Djokovic and Federer and Nadal do. I know it can be interesting to hear the stuff, but it's really just bad PR for the Djokovic camp when his mom and dad say something that's against Roger and Rafa. I get it if they all feel like they've been slighted in some way over the years by the love for Roger and Rafa and Novak not getting that kind of love. I understand that they're probably upset. They're going to say things occasionally, so I don't put too much stock in that. Just know that Djokovic has more bad PR when he doesn't need it. Goran Ivanisevic has said that when he won Wimbledon, he had a good Goran and a bad Goran, right? He was his own worst enemy, and good Goran and bad Goran came together when he won Wimbledon, and it was very special. But he said it cost him a lot of matches over the years, and he sees this in Nick Kyrgios. I mean, don't we all? He has some deep issues. Deep down, he has some issues, he's saying about Kyrgios, Goran Ivanisevic. He is the worst for himself, and I know how he feels. He's fighting with 100 people. Sometimes he wants to prove something that is impossible to prove. But there's no sense to talk about his talent because he is one of the biggest talents. He is the guy who can win the Grand Slams. He can beat anybody, any day. He is, for me, the best server in the game. He can do whatever he wants with the ball. He's getting better and better, and he's going to regret one day if he's not kind of able to change, if he's not able to win a major, is what Goran Ivanisevic is talking about. Hit the music because we're going to get out of here. But I think that is coming from a guy who struggled with the same kind of things and was able to break through and get his one major. I hope that Nick Kyrgios somehow hears that through the grapevine and that gets through to him. Anyways, thanks for watching Coffee Break Tennis today. We will definitely be back next week. Talk about if there's any more developments with the U.S. Open, when tennis is going to happen. But honestly, I'm not expecting us to know very much for another month. However, we will be back next week when it feels like there's enough information worthy of doing a show. Of course, we don't want to be the Tennis Channel here where we talk about TikTok videos and a whole bunch of other stupid stuff that really isn't that interesting. See ya!